Good evening, everyone. This is the regular meeting of ANC 34G on the second Monday in July. We meet on the second and fourth Monday of each month, and we're glad to have everyone here tonight. I'm Randy Speck. I'm the chair of the commission. I represent ANC 34G03, and that covers the area that's basically between Nebraska and Utah and Broad Branch. Some additional areas, but on the sides. We'll introduce the other commissioners. Peter, you want to go next?
I'm Peter Gosselin. I represent the part of the neighborhood that's bounded by the Western Avenue border of with Maryland, from 41st to the Chevy Chase Circle to Military, Military back to 41st, and then a peninsula to the east to Chevy Chase Parkway. Welcome, everyone.
Lisa?
You
Good
there?
evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Gore, and I'm the commissioner for ANC 34G01, which serves Hawthorne and portions of Barnaby Wood. My territory is from Oregon Avenue to Western, a little past Pinehurst Circle, Pinehurst Tributary, and Beach.
Thank you. Connie?
Good evening. My name is Connie Chang. I'm the commissioner for single member district number 5, which is bounded by the east side of Connecticut, starting at Legation, going up to the Circle, cutting around Western, going down Broad Branch Road, and coming back to Legation with a little, Peter likes to say peninsula, that goes down to Jocelyn Street, you know, from both Nevada and Chevy Chase Parkway. Good to be here.
And Michael?
Sorry, I was on mute. Michael Zeldin, 3G04. I represent the area that includes the Lafayette Elementary School. It goes from essentially Morrison to Tennyson, and then the circumference of it is parts of Western and parts of Broad Branch and parts of Utah.
And John? You're muted, John.
I'm John Higgins. I represent single member district 02, which basically runs from Military to on the south to a little bit north of Wise Road on the north, and Oregon Avenue on the east to Utah on the west.
Okay, we have 6 commissioners here tonight, which is a quorum, so we can conduct business. Commissioner Framberluti is out of town. And we want to welcome everybody again. As we have for some time, we're meeting virtually, and it looks like we'll continue to meet virtually for a while into the future. And we want to have as much community participation as we can during these meetings, but for most of the meeting, the commissioners will have audio and video, and the attendees will not. But for those who want to participate, either to make a presentation or to ask questions, Commissioner Gore, once I make her a co-host, will be able to make you a panelist, and then you will have access to video and audio, and if you want to, you can share your screen. Depending on how many people want to speak on a particular topic, we may have to allocate specific time limits on that. I don't think that's going to be the case tonight, but it's possible. If you have questions or want to make comments during the meeting, please use the question and answer for any questions you have, and the chat for any comments. And we'll save the questions and answers and the questions and the chat so that we can respond to anything we don't get to during the meeting. Finally, the meeting is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel probably tomorrow. Okay, the first item we need to address is the adoption of the agenda. The agenda has been posted on our website and on various community listservs and Nextdoor. Are there any modifications and changes anyone has to the agenda? Okay, all those in favor of adopting the agenda? 6-0. Okay, the first item, as is typical for our meetings, is commissioner announcements, and I have a couple. The first is with regard to the fiscal year 2022 budget. And as many of you who've followed our meetings in the past know, we've taken a very active role in the budget process, and we've testified at the council hearings on the budget and several of the committee meetings. The council committees have submitted their reports on the proposed budget now. All of those have gone to the committee of the whole, and so all of the commissioners, all of the council members will be considering them. Now, just a report on a few of the items that we had specifically raised in our testimony. The Committee on Transportation and the Environment did not propose the increase in the funds that the mayor recommended for removal of all DC water service lead service line without charge to customers. We had asked them to allocate a very substantial portion of the federal money that comes to the district to that removal of lead service lines, which continue to be a hazard for the community. It did not increase that, and they talked some about the infrastructure bill that's still pending and that may have some money, some additional money for that lead service line replacement. The council did, however, propose a $200,000 to create an interagency task force to assess DC Water's plans for a lead service line replacement. And this is also something that we had recommended that they do. Since DC Water's plan had not really been vetted with the community or with any of the agencies that oversee that work. So hopefully that's going to go forward in the final bill that's adopted by the council. Second, the Committee on Government Operations and Facilities allocated $250,000 to the Office of the Advisory Neighborhood Commissions for commissioners, for a commission to have access to expert assistance. In other words, if a commission wants to hire an expert for a particular problem that they address, then that $250,000 will be available for that. The other thing is to develop a strategic plan for the Office of the Advisory Neighborhood Commission. That, I think they anticipate that a consultant would be hired to help the OANC to develop a strategic plan. And finally, Councilmember Che's office confirmed this afternoon to me that the budget submission to Congress will include the changes that we recommended to the descriptions of the capital budgets for the Chevy Chase Community Center and Chevy Chase Library, so that it will make clear that they will be a unified project and they will be consistent with the small area plan. Those are the things we asked for in our testimony before the council as well. So we got some of what we had asked for, much of what we'd asked for, but other things we'll have to continue to advocate at the council for those. Just in terms of what's going to happen now with the budget, it's the first vote on the Local Budget Act and the Budget Support Act is going to be on July 20th. And then it's going to be bifurcated a little bit after that. The second vote on the Local Budget Act will be on August 3rd. And there will be a single vote, the only vote, on the federal portion of the Budget Request Act. And then there will be a second vote on August 10th, and that'll be the final vote on the Budget Support Act. And there's more information on the council's budget site, and we'll have a link to that in the minutes to our meeting. Okay, the only other announcement I had is with regard to the Metropolitan Police Department's 38th annual National Night Out. And this is an opportunity to interact with police officers and to get to know them a little bit better and understand what they're doing. That's going to be on August 3rd. And this year, the 2nd District's event will be held at the Guy Mason Recreation Center, which is at 3600 Calvert Street. It'll be from 5 until 8 p.m. Okay, any other commissioners have announcements? Michael.
So the one announcement I have is a follow-on to the issue of the overcrowded situation at Lafayette Elementary School. And I met with the heads of the Episcopal Center for Children, along with Chancellor Farabee, I guess it was 2 weeks ago now, to discuss with them opportunities for the use of the facilities at the ECC by DCPS. It was very nice of Chancellor Farabee to appear personally to this. We had an hour-long conversation. Various ideas were discussed. The ECC board chairman, who was present, said that they would take these discussion points to the board and get back to us. It's a bit premature to speculate what those options may be, but there's an ongoing conversation, at least at the chancellor level and the board level of the ECC. So we'll see. The thing that is the biggest obstacle still is the District of Columbia does not either like to or is statutorily prohibited from, I don't know which, into entering into long-term leases. And if ECC doesn't want to sell in whole or in part, and the DC government doesn't want to enter into a long-term lease, we might come to an irreconcilable difference, but we're not there yet.
Thank you, Michael.
And Randy,
Lisa?
I had one question, if I may, please, which is, am I right that in the mayor's budget, there has now been money allocated for the design of the bike lanes for Connecticut Avenue? I remember it was out and then it was in. What can you remind us what the status of it is?
I have not looked specifically for that, so I do not know. I mean, it will be in the report, the committee report from the Committee on Transportation,
Okay.
but I haven't looked for it.
My recollection, as we can check, is that it wasn't there. And then with the advocacy of Councilmember Che, money was put in, and I think it remained in. But,
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
We have to keep in mind too, that all of this is just the committee's recommendations. None of it yet has been addressed by the council as a whole. Typically, they do follow the committee recommendations, but you never can tell. Things sometimes go awry at the council. Okay, Lisa?
Yes, just wanted to announce, I don't know if anyone else that put in ticket requests for Sidewalk Palooza had noticed any work being done on those requests. I saw 2 of my ticket requests that looked like work is going to be started. So the sidewalk along Western Avenue at Pinehurst Circle, there's some markings there. And additionally, the sidewalk on Western Avenue close to Chestnut Street. So probably about maybe 5 houses down, there's a very raised portion of the sidewalk. And I talked to the constituent that lives there and he said, I thought you put the markings there. And I was like, no, I didn't do it. So apparently DDOT has been out and marking those areas. It's bright orange. I'm happy that, you know, at least something is getting some attention, and the resolution for those 2 sections, I believe, are July 25th. So I'll just watch them and see if they're actually going to do the work or if they're just marking it for safety.
Yes, I got us now.
Just wanted to see if anyone else has that, and then also to announce that to the community, because that is a win for us.
Good. I just got
I have-
your email. I will try to get back to you.
I haven't seen that.
Okay.
Michael, did you have a follow-up on that? You're muted.
I did have one follow-up, Lisa reminded me, which is that Shira Molina, who has been our representative at DDOT, emailed me today saying that this is her last week as the Ward 4 Community Engagement Specialist for DDOT, and that a new person named Tanya Powell will be taking over for Syra. So I wanted to just say that and to thank Syra for all of her help during our tenure on the ANC.
Do you have Tanya's coordinates?
Do I have her coordinates? I
And
don't
if
know
you
what
do,
her
could you
word
please-
coordinate means, but her email is
That's-
tanya.powell@dc.gov. And it's tanya.powell@dc.gov. I don't have a phone number.
Just to piggyback off of that, Michael, when we had also received the email of the new DDOT rep for Ward 3, I would really encourage the ANC to maybe consider, a joint, walk about the community with those two new reps. We could do the Ward 3 section and Ward 4 section to show them some of these areas, which would include what we submitted sidewalk requests for, how long they've been out there. I have some old ones in the system that I can't go back and historically look at. So we have some system issues there. And I know we have some traffic safety studies out as well. So maybe we can take that into consideration, and maybe Tanya and her counterpart in Ward 3 are willing to do a walkabout with us on a cool day, not a hot day.
Hey, John?
Yes, I just got a note from Mr. Slaughter. Somehow the link I sent him has expired and we need to get him the proper link for tonight. How can we do that? I can close out and go back to Randy's notice and.
Yeah, I think that's what you're gonna have to do. I could read it to you, but it's probably easier just to go back.
Okay, I'll close out and then rejoin the meeting later after I take care of this.
Okay,
Well, you don't, do you need to do that? I could just get you the link from our website. In fact, Stephanie can do it. She could put the link in the chat and then you can just copy it and send him an email. So you don't need to leave, John.
Okay,
So Randy, and follow up on Lisa's point, the new Ward 3 liaison is Christian Pinheiro.
Right.
And it's Christian, CHRISTIAN.PINEIRO@dc.gov.
all right, Peter?
Actually, I've been corresponding with Kristen about this. There was yet another accident at the intersection of Military Road and Chevy Chase Parkway on Thursday, the rainy night, Thursday night, July 8th. This is the reason I ran for ANC, to see if I could move this thing forward. Hasn't been moved very far so far. Same style, same pattern, car traveling east to west on Military, broadsided by a car that simply didn't know there was an intersection there, traveling north to south on Chevy Chase Parkway. I love Lisa's idea about getting these new liaisons to walk with us, but I've got to say we need to somehow find a way to get it further up the ladder. I just say that in the aftermath of this accident, the neighbors, the neighborhood group, the people right around the circle, and I talked. Our memory is that we filed for a traffic assessment study in January after multiple other traffic assessments, and Derek Voigt of DDOT acknowledged that the work that the department has done on the intersection has not improved safety or not improved it to any standard that even the department holds itself to, but somehow that hasn't translated into anything. So it's just a heads up to the commissioners. I'm going to try to revive this issue yet again.
I suggest that we try to get Everett Lott to come out there. Jeff Marushian has been there. Jeff was the previous DDOT director.
Right.
And Jeff has been to that site, it was years ago now. But I think it would be a good idea to get Director Lott there as well.
All for
And if we're going to get them out there, I press for the same intersection just at 1 block north on Legation and Connecticut, which is just, you know, for you to cross, you've taken your life in your own hands in a way, because cars really do speed. So some of these intersections are very concerning, I think. And we have actually tickets out for others like McKinley. There's one that's been out for a very long time. So we have them out. And I think we should, as Randy said, ask Director Lott to come out, but also show him that there are these major intersections that really need help.
Okay, Michael?
Last thing on this point. So I've been and I've been CCing Peter on this. I have in the last week emailed Director Lott and advised him of this. And I've been in communication with John Falchicho, the mayor's deputy, and who he put me in touch with, Lucinda Barbers, Julia Irving, a batch of other people who he said should help us get to the point. The thing that is so problematic, as I indicated in my last email to Peter, is that Christian, the brand new person, says, the only thing I see in the system is a new one filed a week or two ago, and there's no traffic calming questionnaire that's been answered. And so if you start this process, we can look into it. And that's the biggest problem, is these come with no historical knowledge of what's going on. And apparently the 311 system is not easily searchable for historic things. So I second the notion of getting these people out. But Peter, if you look at the last email I sent, there's a long list of people that Falchicho has advised that we, sort of reach out to. So maybe that's the escalation that's recommend that he's recommending.
I'll take it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The first step would be Everett Lott.
But I emailed him already and he never replied.
Yeah, well, we should get a reply.
Yeah.
We should insist on a reply.
Yeah, we have to
He's
deal
late.
with both cars and pedestrians, and the Legation, Connecticut is a pedestrian issue, as well as a car issue, because just like Chevy Chase Parkway, you inch very far out past the crosswalk because you can't see whether or not you have right of way, and that just doesn't work. So there's got to be mirrors or something. Anyway,
The same thing is true on Western Avenue. Try to get onto Western Avenue from Tennyson or Upland or any of those streets. You can't see anything in either direction, and there's no stop signs.
Just on the mirrors, that DDOT does not use mirrors any longer. They are concerned that they get out of adjustment, and therefore you can't rely on them. And as a result, there's a liability issue involved. So mirrors are out of the question.
But
okay, then they have to have a tech fix. There's got to be some fix, because we're gonna have. I mean, my own family and my neighbors almost have gotten hit multiple times. So that's just my own personal experience, let alone anyone else's experience. So just on that intersection.
Okay. Any other commissioner announcements?
Peter, I'll be glad to work with you on that.
Okay. Community announcements. Any community announcements? If you want to raise your hand. Any of the attendees want to raise their hand?
Randy, I don't see Robert Gordon. Do we want to mention the Chevy Chase Day, September 18th?
Yeah, if you want to just mention it, that's still a long way off, but
it is, but maybe people can mark their calendars that September 18th is the day for Chevy Chase Day, and it'll take place at on the grounds of the Chevy Chase Community Center in the library. And there's been a grant given to the Chevy Chase Community Citizens Association, Chevy Chase Citizens Association rather, to invite, I guess, some entertainment and so forth. And there's going to be tables where neighbors can meet, like commissioners and others, like the Chevy Chase Main Street. And so it'll be fun, and especially for kids. And about 1,000 to 1,500 people show up. So it's a big day. And it's one where we haven't been out like that. So it'll be nice.
What's the date again?
September 18th.
And Robert has asked if the ANC wants to have a table, and I told him absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll be out there so people can meet us, you know, in person rather than over Zoom.
Where is it again?
It's going to be
At
at
the
the community
community
center.
At the community center. Okay.
Yeah, right over there. And they're going to, like, I think, take over like the basketball court and so forth, and maybe part of the parking lot. So people need to be aware they can't park there.
And is it an all-day event, Connie?
No, it's from 1 until 5, I think.
Right. Mhm.
Okay, I don't see any hands up for community announcements. Okay, no community announcements. Amira is not here, I see. So, okay, well, we'll move on then to the next item on the agenda, which is a report on small area plan process from Commissioners Chang and Goslin, who are both members of the Community Advisory Committee as well for the small area plan.
Go ahead, Connie.
Sure. So Peter and I attended the 5th Community Advisory Committee meeting, and that was just on July 7th. And we were given a report out on the survey of the Northwest Neighbors Village, Stephen Altman. There was a survey that was posted just several weeks back to gain citizens, residents that are over the age of 60 about what they felt about the small area plan and so forth, and about the neighborhood changes. And those results he's collating. He gave us a little bit of a summary of it so that he could have a little bit feedback of what to do with all of the comments that are separate from just filling out the bubbles, of the yes, no, and so forth. It aligned pretty closely, we thought, with and that was about 80 people, I think. Is that right, Peter? I think about 80 people filled out that survey. And then after that, we heard from Erican Osberg, our small area plan coordinator, who shared with us the visioning survey, which received about 583 responses. And then there were about 80 people who joined in on the 4 visioning workshops that were held June 5th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. And they found that some days there are, bigger, larger participation. But those results from the survey kind of matched the results that the Northwest Neighbors Village came out with. And so some of it is about the physical kind of what's the placemaking, what's on the streets and how people would like to see it. They'd like to see more benches, more places to sit, more places to congregate. That really came out, quite a lot. And then just how to have the kind of programming that we'd like to see to get people out in greater number. And so forth. So I don't want to share too much because Erkin is going to come July 26th at our next ANC meeting, and he will give the entire, summary of everything. And Stephen Altman, when he's done, he will share it. He did not want us to share prematurely. So what we said was we'd like to see some of the comments just as they are in the chat for the CAC meeting. Some members said that, because it's difficult. It's not quantitative, it's anecdotal, but sometimes the long answers kind of show you where people, stand. And so both OP and Steve Altman are thinking about what to do for those 2 surveys. Erican said that he will share the summary of his presentation to us right after, meaning share it to the community right after the July 26th, his July 26th presentation, and that the rest of that information will be on the publicinput.com/Chevy Chase, the project website. And then he also will share, I guess, the existing conditions report, which is what OP always does at the beginning of the small area plan. They go out and they really look at what is in the neighborhood, in that boundary of the plan. And then they will tell us what they hear. So it puts everything in context, like population density, how many buildings, where are they, and all that stuff. That they will also share. I've been asking that for a few months, but they're still just working on it. And also Chevy Chase Main Street has a survey out of businesses about what their needs are and so forth. But it's not clear to me if everyone has had time to really fill out the survey. Like the response rate may not be that high, but we haven't heard from them directly. And so OP is also interested in that because they like to fold in some of that information, just like the other survey from Northwest Neighbors Village, so they can really round out what, people are hearing, and what the input is. So hopefully Chevy Chase Main Street will have their survey done in the next few months. Work really for the rest of the small area plan isn't really going to start truly until probably September after Labor Day. And that's something that happens because just everyone is on vacation and people's attention isn't on this work. So I just want to mention my information exchange. Peter, do you want to go back to your anything? What would you like to do? I don't want to keep talking if you want to jump right in, if I've missed anything, which I might have.
Well, so let me just say my
Mm-hmm.
2 cents worth here is that while Osbert was talking, on the screen was the timeline, the same timeline that we've been seeing for months now. As far as I can tell, OP's view is that there are 2 events where there's really any capacity of residents here to speak and react. This in the fall, a charrette and a open house on the draft plan. And it's not clear to me, this is my reaction, it's not clear to me that OP has ever really accepted the notion that we'll go to the end of the calendar year. So I alert the commission that if there are going to be other kinds of community events around this in the fall, we're going to have to push to be sure we get those built into what OP is thinking, because OP sees itself as moving from the visioning process, which is to the design process, where they come up with plans and bring them back to the community, and that we react in a charrette, and then in this open house where there's a draft plan, and sounds like it's pretty far down the pike at that point. Just an alert.
The charrette is not going to be until September?
The charrette likely won't start until then, but he is, yes, he's going to walk. This is the reason for that. Okay, so here's the missing thing, is that the contract is not, they haven't finalized the contractor. So that contract, there's some problems, with just finalizing it. Once they get the contractor who does the design, the guy who's going to visualize all the stuff, once they do that, he's going to do a walk around with that person and invite the community to do it. And he was thinking, maybe even on Chevy Chase Day, they could have like 30 minutes or maybe before the day or something like that, where he, meaning Erkin, can walk around with the contractor and the neighbors to just look at the Chevy Chase Community Center, that unified campus, walk around the avenue, just get them a feel for it. So that's what he shared with us. So Erkin is continuing to, in small ways, like at the Garfield, the building right on Legation and Connecticut, he's going to attend, which is in 2 days, their condo board meeting. They invited him and he's going to speak to them. So all those tenants in that building will get a chance. So I'm assuming Lorraine and anywhere else, any of these other places, any of these other big apartment buildings, they could certainly invite Erkin and then have the apartment dwellers also have a chance to share if they hadn't already. So he's doing those things and trying to finish up all of the data analysis, a piece of it, and then to share that out. But he did say, he's going to go back to a farmer's market. He's going to try to figure out ways in which he can, share the summary and the existing conditions. And then when the design charrette comes about, he said, he's going to see how things, go and how things would fit in with each other. And the thing I wanted to mention is that my resolution that the commission adopted on April 26th was really geared to information exchange. And so there's been several seminars, Zoominars, from local civic organizations, over the course of these 2-3 months. And, but there's still a few things missing. And so I have proposed, 4 ideas. And I shared it with the commission. I've shared it with the committee, the community advisory committee members. And then I had further discussion. So I'm going to try to update that and then share that piece out, which is this. There's 4 ideas. One is we would love to hear what are the steps to making this unified campus happen with the Chevy Chase Community Center and the library, because I'm not an expert on planning, and it would be nice if the district can come to us and let us know what those things are. And also, once the plan is done, there's some things in the plan that might trigger any kind of specific zoning that would be very particular to us. So those 2 things, what I haven't mentioned to the commissioners is that I did speak with the Office of Planning, with Joel Lawson, who's the Associate Director of Development Review. And I also spoke to Erican, and Erican had already been thinking about doing, something like this, which is to explain, how do these things happen, and also buffering, for any kind of larger building, it's going to affect adjacent neighbors more. And what are the options on buffering? This is all a part of not just a plan, but the implementation part of it. So the idea about buffering, the ideas about zoning, any kind of particular zoning that could help us, that he promised to work with the commission on in September, October. So those things are not going to happen now. They'll happen later. And it will happen when we have people's attention on the visioning that gets seen as an actual design, so those ideas about what would it look like. So when we get there, then we'll talk about, well, then what does buffering look like? So we're all concerned about that. How do we soundproof? How do we make sure there's enough space and no one feels penned in? All of those things I'm going to work with him on and share with the commission, make sure that there's a speaker that can talk to us about that. And any kind of tailored zoning, any of that comes actually later too, because when the plan goes to the council for review, and if it's approved, in that plan, we can say we would like to work with OP on any kind of zoning amendment that would make a certain lot or a certain something a particular way, and they could work with us on that. But that's really later. So those are 3 things: buffering, zoning, and then the steps. So the steps we can do sooner than later, and that is something that I'll try to work on. The 4th is personal stories, and so I did share that with Erican. That's something that Lisa and I have talked about, and personal stories about people who live here who are low income and who've moved here for a reason, and we would love to hear about them. And I've spoken to a few. And so the idea there is maybe a Zoominar is not the way. Maybe there's a video where we could actually make it a historic thing, so Historic Chevy Chase DC has those profiles. And so my next thing is to talk to them. So I just want you to all to know that I am working on these step by step and trying to find the best way for us to share it with the community and to have more people come forward and to figure out how to do that, to have a video interview, to have it written up, and then to have it posted so that we all have a sense of who lives here and why did they move here and how could we make this our neighborhood more inviting. So those are the 4, and we welcome other topics, but those are the 4 I think are kind of missing at the moment. And then there are other things that we can continue to work on as we move forward over the next few weeks.
Okay. All right, any questions from commissioners? Okay, Lisa, you want to talk about the Racial and Social Equity Standing Committee?
Yep. So we haven't had a meeting since our last ANC meeting, and that's because the Racial and Social Equity Standing Committee meets once a month. So our next meeting will be on July 20th. But what we have been doing and spending a lot of time working on, and we did get out, is a letter to MPD and also council members Che, Pinto, and Louis George, asking for a meeting to discuss the 2nd District non-traffic related stop data. That letter went out probably last week or so. We copied all the council members and all the members of the Racial and Social Equity Task Force. So we did get some pretty good response. We have a meeting scheduled with everyone on the 15th, I believe, at 3 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. So everyone should have that link. And in addition to that, I was contacted by Councilmember White's staff, and this is Robert White, and he was not able to attend that meeting, but he did schedule a separate side-along meeting with myself, and Randy is going to attend that, and that is actually tomorrow morning. So we're looking forward to that. Actually the 13th. Yeah, tomorrow morning.
Wow.
Moving fast. And we had some suggestions from the committee members in terms of things that we're probably going to touch upon in the meeting. The two main things I think that we're going to address is the stop and frisk piece to this, which is probably what this data absolutely represents, and the NEAR Act, which is the transparency of that data and MPD's compliance or lack thereof. And try to schedule something, or we'll have to, see how we can keep this as a continuous conversation. There are definitely a lot of community groups. So one thing I want us to keep in mind, there are a lot of community groups that have been working on this issue for a long time. And we might want to think about ways to kind of incorporate their voices. My reason for saying that is we're strictly focused on 2nd District, which is our territory. But if you look at that data and you look at the historical context of the data and the historical reporting, this is an issue all across the city. So there are already people out there in the city that have been kind of fighting this fight. So it just kind of makes sense at some point for us to link up and at least, talk to them about some of the issues that they've seen and some of their strategies as well to make it a unified effort. So the one thing that I think we'll have to consider, and I'm interested to get the ANC's input on this, is involvement of the other neighboring ANCs. And I did do a list of them. There are quite a few. There's actually a lot. There are 9 other ANCs that are in PSA or the 2nd District. So the various PSAs, which there's 9, 201 through 209, that comprise the 2nd District. Since we're, I'm coming out of federal government, territory is something I still think about. We might want to think about how we're going to reach out to them and let them be aware of this issue. I don't think Thursday's meeting is maybe the right time to have so many voices on that line, because I want the meeting to stay focused on the core issues that we're trying to address. But I think those other ANCs definitely need to be apprised of it, since we're looping in their council members. I think that'll be a good thing for us to do.
I agree with that. Some of those are in Ward 2 as well, right?
Yeah.
Ward 3. I think it's
Ward
all of
3 and
3.
4. Yeah.
All of Ward 3.
Yeah.
And some of Ward 2.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any questions from commissioners about Lisa's report? Okay, the next item on our agenda is John Higgins is going to lead. It's the presentation and discussion with Stephen Slaughter about the Veterans Advisory Board. And John, you want to take that over? And Lisa, can you promote Mr. Slaughter?
Okay, Lisa, we actually have 2 people.
Okay.
Mr. Slaughter will be accompanied by Carrie Bachner, and she is on the attendee list.
Got her. Thank you.
You have them both?
Yep.
Okay. Stephen Slaughter is a member of the Mayor's Advisory Commission on Veterans. He asked to present several weeks ago. There was a little bit of a hitch in appointments, but we got that settled. And we also got the Zoom link settled today. I apologize to Carrie and to Stephen Slaughter about that, but everybody is here. they're going to present us, tell us a little bit about how the advisory committee works. So we get an idea of what they do. After it is over, I have one issue I would like to bring up with them briefly. Both people are Air Force officer veterans. And in Mr. Slaughter's post-military life, he was an ANC commissioner for, I think, 4 or 5 terms. And Ms. Slaughter now runs her own security firm dealing with Homeland Security and consulting. She has a woman-owned, veteran-owned small business. So, Mr. Slaughter, you're on.
Good evening, and thank you, commissioners. Thank you for having us here to present to you guys. I know you hear it a lot of times, but I want to be the one to also echo the importance of your position as an ANC commissioner and how you guys work together to try to bring the community together as a whole and do what's best for the community and overall for this city as well. Thank you for having us here again. I appreciate it. I'm joined by Carrie, as Commissioner Higgins mentioned. We're going to tell you guys a little bit about the Office of Veterans Affairs and a little bit about the mayor's Veterans Advisory Board, which we are both a part of. This is about my 3rd year being on the board. I was tapped by the previous director to join the board. I represent Ward 8. What we try to do is get representatives from each ward to be on the board so we can have an equal impact on the city and how we affect the veterans. What we try to do is provide a way for veterans and their families to have an easier life. If there's programs that are out there that veterans and their family members can take advantage of, we try to get that information to the veterans as soon as possible. We also introduced legislation to the mayor and to the city council on things that can make veterans and their families' lives a lot easier. We also do small things such as provide information on how to get certain veterans license plates. You guys may have seen those as you're driving around DC. Some of those things initiate from our office and we take it upon ourselves. We have pride in the work that we do, and our thing is getting assistance to veterans as much as we can. I'll talk to you a little bit about some of the accomplishments that we have over the last few years. As soon as I can bring it up. Of course, you can never get it when you need it.
Let me make you a co-host so you can do that, Mr. Slaughter. Just 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay. Well, I don't know about sharing it because I sort of wrote it in long shorthand over the computer, so it's words and crap everywhere. I just needed to bring it up so I can read from it.
Okay.
As you all know, these last 16, 18 months have put a lot of strain on everyone, including the veterans with COVID going on. We were able to provide information to veterans on where they can go to get shots. The VA was offering shots for free for veterans. So that was one of the key things we wanted to put out to the veterans. On average, the Mayor's Office of Veterans Affairs average about 45 phone calls a day where they're providing information and helping veterans file claims through the VA. We've also were able to get another veteran service officer in to help alleviate some of those calls and some of those emails that was coming into the office. So that was one of the key things that we worked on. We've also worked with several nonprofits in the area to distribute food to residents. I was a participant in that. I was happy to help out and provide meals for veterans and their family members and all residents of Ward 8. We've also teamed up and provided meals during Thanksgiving and Christmas to veterans, which it brought me a lot of joy. That started out as a small project. The plan originally was to feed 12 family members, but as the word got out, of course, those 12 slots filled up kind of quick, and I started getting phone calls and emails from other residents, and it was no way we could let those residents go on those holidays without having a meal. So that expanded, and we ended up teaming up, and we ended up passing out 300 meals on Thanksgiving, and for Christmas it was close to 1,000 meals. So that's one of the things that the Office of Veterans Affairs and our veteran members do for our veterans of the city. We've also introduced legislation. I think when somebody had a question about reducing taxes for veterans, we are in the process of drawing up legislation to present to the city council members on that as well. And Commissioner Higgins, you talked about the Knollwood retirement community. We've actually had one of our monthly meetings there. What we try to do is get out into the community and have meetings at all the wards throughout the city. That way it's another opportunity to connect with the residents and with the veterans of DC and let them know that we exist and we're here to help them. And if they have any questions or concerns, they can always come to us. They can reach out to the Office of Veterans Affairs directly through email, or they can go to the website. The website is OVA, Oscar Victor Alpha .dc.gov. They can call the office at 202-724-7116. Someone is always there Monday through, well, today's the first day that DC government, I believe, came back. So somebody's gonna be in that office Monday through Friday during normal business hours to take questions and emails and concerns and just regular comments that not only veterans, but their family members and just the regular citizens of DC may have. If you allow me, I will turn it over to Carrie. Carrie's gonna talk a little bit about the honor flight that she's been working with for the last 2 years. I think I might have put her on the spot though.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate it. And thank you, team, for having us join your meeting. We appreciate it. We always like to come out and chat about what kind of work we're doing for our veterans in all the different wards. So it excites me. We started with an honor flight. Well, I started working with a group. They do honor flights to DC. This is everything. It seems like it's pre-COVID or post-COVID now, unfortunately, but it was pre-COVID, and we were setting up some dates to come to DC. Now, the honor flight just in general, I don't know if everyone's aware of the honor flight just in general, the organization, but what it does is it's around the nation, and what they do is they work in conjunction with specific airlines to bring former veterans from either from any of the wars, I'll say, that's unfortunate, to DC to come and visit. And so they've been doing that for many years. However, they've never really met with any of the DC veterans, with the mayor, or really any congressional members as well. So we started working with the organization to maybe have like a lunch or breakfast with the mayor. We presented that to the mayor. And then of course, COVID occurred. So we have still been in talks with the honor flight. Of course, you know, it's suspended on some of the occasions, given the fact that the airport was shut down, and then some of the cities are not having a group of people, you know, join and meet. But now that DC is starting to reopen, as well as other cities, we are working on them coming back up to DC. And when I say they, it's a different group and a different set of folks every time. And it's throughout the year, the calendar year. So we're excited to bring that program back alive post-COVID. And definitely, if you have any ideas, or if you have something specific to your ward, please reach out to us. I can follow up. I think everyone has my email, but I can more than happy, you know, follow up with anyone that reaches out to me or calls me, either way.
John?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank each of you and both of you for your service. Not only your active military service, but what you're doing now with the veterans. The topic I wanted to bring up was the tax issue, and Stephen, you're already pretty much familiar with that, so I won't take up any future time. I would mention that Thelma Marzek, who is our external affairs coordinator here at Knollwood, is interested in this topic. So we would like to continue to be in touch with you about that issue. And also, I would mention that we had as a guest here, Janice Lewis George, a few weeks ago, and we introduced that topic to her, and she showed some significant interest in that. So we would just like to continue to be in touch with you on that issue. Obviously, there are veterans who live here at Norwood, but I think they are joined by, I think, something like 20,000 veterans in DC. So this is an issue of significant concern to our city, and we really appreciate your interest in this, and we'll try to follow up with you. So thanks very much. Anybody else have any?
Just as a bit of background, our ANC, a bill was introduced, I think about 2 years ago, for a tax exemption for, and our ANC supported that. The legislation never got out of committee, however. And so I think we need to think about how we can get it through the council the next time when it comes up. But our commission's been very supportive of it, as we're supportive of all of the veterans at Knollwood particularly. Lisa?
Yeah, so I was going to piggyback off that tax issue. And Stephen, can you give me a little introduction of that legislation? I'm definitely really interested in that too. I think that's something that I definitely would like to know about and see how we can champion. And Randy just kind of gave an overview of that. But can you give us a little overview of the pending, or what you guys are trying to introduce in the legislation, and what council members maybe have your support, which ones you're struggling with?
Yeah, so the council members we were working with was council member Brandon Todd, who's no longer with us. And when I say no longer with us, he's still alive.
No longer a council member.
We understand.
Right. And council member Robert White. If you guys allow me to, I'd like to email you what we have. That way you can actually see the language, and we definitely would appreciate the support with that. Yeah. So give me a little bit of time to get that together. I'll have it for you by close of business tomorrow, if that's okay.
Okay.
That'd be great.
And I have the information on the bill that was introduced prior to that. So maybe I'll exchange that with you. So if there's any differences, whatever, they could be reconciled or reinforce each other. So thanks.
One of the selling for that legislation is that there are a lot of states now that have just this kind of exemption, and DC is sort of behind the curve on this. There are a lot of other states who have already adopted something like this.
And hopefully pretty soon DC will be that 51st state, right?
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
And if I can, just one thing that Commissioner Gore that you talked about with stop and frisk, I'm really interested in what you guys are doing with that, and talking to your other neighboring communities and other ANCs. I was a detective on MPD for a while, so I remember those stop and frisk days, and I know how the law has changed here and also other places, New York, Minnesota, Arizona. Those states have removed or totally gotten rid of stop and frisk. And as you know, from being a commissioner, I got a lot of phone calls from the residents in Ward 8 that said members of MPD were using stop and frisk illegally against a lot of them in this area. So that's something that I would like to get on board with you guys with. I'm part of, you talked about many organizations in DC. I'm part of another organization called CRAVE, Concerned Residents Against Violence. So that's something we would definitely like to get with you guys on as well, if you allow us, if you need us, if you want us to.
Well, we got a lot of in common, because you're an MPD detective and I was a federal special agent. So I just retired and I got a lot of time on my hands. So
congratulations on your retirement.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely talk shop. That is awesome. And if you don't mind, John, I don't know if we have their email out.
Yeah, I'll get everything. I've got everybody's email.
And then we'll definitely get together and meet. I think that's really important. And we both have a really good perspective. Maybe we can move this along a little bit.
Sounds good. And thank you again for allowing us to be here. And you guys may notice my blue Knight shirt. I am a blue Knight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Connie?
Did notice.
I just wanted to ask you, unless, so First of all, thank you for coming. I wanted to ask you for some statistics. You know, how many veterans live in Washington, D.C., and where are they across the wards? Number one, I think it's very important, and certainly with DC statehood, that the country recognizes that a lot of people who live here have served, and we don't have representation, and that is wrong. So do you have those statistics handy? And if you don't, would you mind sending it to us, and so that we can put it in the minutes, or at the very least share, if that's possible?
Yeah, I'll get the exact number for you, but they're around 45,000 veterans in DC.
Okay.
The primary
That's a lot.
wards where most of the veterans are 4, 5, and 8. But I'll get those exact numbers for you and have them for you by the close of business tomorrow.
And
Excellent.
do you, thank you, and do you know they're veterans of which, of what, like in terms of, I mean, I'm sure
Which
World War
service?
II, we're getting really, that the numbers are getting smaller, but yes. Do you have that as well?
I'll find out for sure for you.
Okay,
And
thank you so much.
I'll have them broken down by those numbers as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Michael?
Are there, just out of curiosity, are there any members on the DC City Council who are veterans?
Not that
Member-
I'm aware of.
Sorry, say that again?
Are there any DC Council members who are veterans?
I don't
No,
think so.
there are not.
Huh. So one of you veterans has to run for DC City Council.
You
The
know,
other thing-
I actually thought about that here in Ward 8, but I'm a federal government employee as well, and they told me I would have to resign from the federal government to run for city council.
Right. The other question is, do you have a list of all the ANC commissioners who have been or who are veterans, I guess is the way of putting it? Do you have a comprehensive list? Because it would seem to me that if we push forward something through the ANCs, having a list of the ANC veterans might be useful as a cohort.
That would be really useful, but unfortunately, I don't know of any entity that would collect that information from the veterans. I don't think there's any boxes or information that they fill out when they're running for ANC that would capture that information.
I'll bet though, if I send out an email asking for all the veterans to identify themselves as commissioners, I bet we get a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm down to try it. I'm there with you if you want to work together to do that.
Yeah, I'll see if we can't do that.
Okay.
Because I've got the email address for all the commissioners, and I can easily send something out.
The last thing I wanted to say, wearing your detective hat again, I think, and Lisa and I have been talking about this in relation to the upcoming meeting, which unfortunately I can't attend. I think what we're seeing in the city, not so much stop and frisk, we're just seeing stop. So I'm not sure that people are being actually frisked, you know, in the old sense of like New York and the problems there, but people are being stopped without probable cause or an articulable basis for the stop. So we, you know, Lisa and I joked with Lisa, not a joke really, it's the probable cause or the articulable suspicion is walking while being black or driving while being black. And it's creating stops and questionings, but not going as far as the frisk. So it's just as invidious in a race sense, but it's skirting the law part, which would trigger all sorts of problems. So anyway, it's just a small point, but I think detective wearing a detective hat, that's what I think is we're seeing more of than the going to the frisk part.
Last year at one of the ANC meetings, when I was still the chair over in 8E, the captain of Sector 3 came and gave us an update on some of the changes in the laws and stop and frisk in DC. And what MPD is required to do now is advise the individuals that they stop that they don't have to talk to the police officers and they can go about their way if they want. But I will have, I will contact Chief Conti or one of his representatives and get the exact language that was changed and how it was changed and present that to you guys as well.
Yeah. As a former federal prosecutor, my response to that observation by the police is, yeah, and good luck with that. For the person who says no, thank you. That in itself will be a triggering event for further.
It definitely would. And they would come up with something else. You fit the description of the guy walking down the street, the guy that just robbed just burglarized someone. So yeah, we both know how that can go.
Yeah.
Carrie?
Yes, I just wanted to mention with regards to the legislation, Stephen, is that the Homestead Exemption Act? Is that what we were alluding to? You're on.
Yes.
Okay. Like a lot of legislation, as everyone is aware, even though it may get out of council and passed, we had a problem with this particular legislation because although it was accepted, the money was not there. So I believe in a couple of years ago, Stephen, I think it was voted and it became law. However, money was just not appropriated to it. I
It
believe
was an unfunded one that we had.
that's right. So I think our last budget hearing, we asked for the law to have appropriations tied to it. And so we're sort of waiting right now. I believe that's where we are with that specific legislation.
That's always a problem when they pass legislation and then don't fund it.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Oh, this has been great.
All right, we thank you very much, Stephen and Carrie. It's been very enlightening and helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So we appreciate it.
You
Thank you.
bet.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, Connie, you're going to be shepherding through the presentation, which is from the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking on COVID-19 scams and avoiding coronavirus fraud.
Correct.
It's
So
kind of
Mr.
started. You have to change Mr. Slaughter.
Okay, I can do
Yes.
that.
And you need to
All right.
elevate Mr. Abdullah, who's there already and provided his contact information in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, so Mr. Abdullah should be with us and he will also give a presentation, but just a very brief introduction. Hello, Mr. Abdullah, how are you?
How are you all doing?
I'm fine. I wanted to just say that you've been 14 years in your position as consumer protection advocate at the District of Columbia's Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking. And prior to that, you were, I guess you served, I don't know how many terms, but you were also a former commissioner of ANC 4B06. So we welcome you tonight. And if you have a presentation, I think Randy or Lisa can make you co-host, is that right? And then you can share your screen for us, but please introduce yourself and please start. And we're sorry, we're just slightly late tonight.
No, that's fine. Again, my name is Idriys Abdullah. I'm a consumer protection advocate with the DC Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking. First and foremost, I would like to thank the Commission for allowing me the opportunity to present. As Ms. Chang noted, I'm a former commissioner for B06. And it's just an honor and a privilege to be before you all. I did want to just extend a greeting to Mr. Slaughter. As a graduate of Anacostia Senior High School myself, and I'm not going to hold it against him that he went to Ballou. I guess he had to go to high school somewhere. So, and he'll understand that as a Ballou-nite.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
We've been friendly competitors since forever. So it was good to hear from him. But I'm ready to get started if indeed I can share the screen. Let's see if I'm going to get lucky and the technology not betray us. everyone should see a slide saying protecting your financial interests.
We've got it.
COVID-19 scams. Okay.
Yes.
Now I'm gonna try to do the,
Yeah, just click on the presentation mode there at the bottom of your screen. There's that little square to the right bottom. Before you make it bigger or smaller, before you toggle it, I think that's the presentation view.
you say down at the bottom,
The bottom right, there's a shaded gray. If you move 3 to the right, I believe if you click on that, that's the big presentation view. Is that correct?
let me get back to where I was first.
Okay,
The first try, F5.
there you
Good.
go.
That's it. That's it. You got it.
That's fantastic. So miracles do happen. Again, this is our presentation. We're going to, and again, I'm very sensitive of time. I'm going to try to keep it to 20 minutes. There was allotted. The DC Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking is the city's regulatory agency for the financial services industry. We administer the regulations, laws, and rules related to the financial services industry with the intent to develop and improve market conditions and to attract, strong positive firms. We really want to ensure that residents have choices in financial services and importantly are treated fairly. Who do we regulate? The biggest chunk is, of course, our insurance companies. I hope everyone here who's still driving has auto insurance, life insurance, health insurance, what have you. We also regulate the finance companies, your mortgage lenders, investment bankers, etc. We provide services in areas of consumer information and protection, small business and economic development, financial literacy, and consumer services. Now, since last year, since this pandemic came out of nowhere, basically we noticed an uptick in certain types of scams, financial fraud, directly related to the pandemic. And one of them was the medical supply sales. Supposedly there were supplies and medications that could prevent or cure COVID-19, but the real intent was for scam artists to secure your credit card and personal information. In many cases, goods were never delivered, or the goods that were delivered proved to be ineffective. One of the, I guess, kind of concepts that we need to hold on to is about who initiated the contact. If you initiated the contact with a particular company, that's one thing. But when these companies start contacting you, that's something different. The bottom line is we have to take control of our own financial destinies by making sure that we're the ones who initiate initial contact. Vaccines, cures, and tests. We want folks to be aware of offers for vaccines, these test kits, home air filter systems, etc. If you receive a call, email, text, letter with claims to sell you these items, more likely than not, it's a scam. Now, with that being said, there are legitimate business offerings. However, again, who initiated the contact? If you initiated, that's one thing. You've done your research and your due diligence. It's something totally different than a company just drops out of nowhere and they have a home air filter system that they, in quote, guarantee will prevent everyone in your house from ever contracting COVID-19. We've noticed an uptick in terms of fraudulent investment scams. Companies, in quote, supposedly publicly traded corporations stating that they have products or services that can prevent, detect, or prevent or cure COVID. And because of that, supposedly the stock of these companies will skyrocket, and it's a can't lose investment opportunity. The reality of it is there is no such thing as a can't lose investment opportunity. There's a reason why securities don't go along with these guarantees. So again, let the buyer or investor beware. charitable contribution request. The reality of it is the District of Columbia, and someone mentioned it to me today, that the city is really a patchwork quilt of neighborhoods. And these neighborhoods traditionally have been really sensitive to the needs of others, to folks in need. But we're asking that people, be careful of organizations that are contacting you with requests for donations. If indeed you want to make a charitable contribution, let's go back to that old adage that charity begins at home. There are a number of nonprofit organizations, religious institutions, what have you, that you can reach out and contact and make a contribution to. The key, however, is to make the initial contact. Now, this particular scam is really, it really kind of gets under my skin because of how insidious it is. Scammers will actually pose as a representative from a hospital, call you and say that one of your relatives had been rushed to the emergency room. They need to have some of your personal information related to your relative. They'll either ask for, some or transfer of funds to cover the initial, billing, or your personal information, name, address. Oh, by the way, your bank account and social security number. Again, what we're asking is if you get a call from anybody saying that one of your friends or relatives has been admitted to a hospital or is seeking treatment, contact that friend or relative. And if you cannot contact them directly, contact another friend or relative that can verify the story. Social Security benefit scam. Now, working from home has been interesting because I get one of these phone calls at least once a week with the Social Security scam. Yes, Social Security Administration offices are closed. However, Social Security will not suspend or decrease your payments due to the pandemic. But it is very intimidating for folks who rely on 2/3 or more of their total retirement income from Social Security to receive a phone call suggesting that your payments are either going to be decreased or suspended. Ms. Chang, how are we for time?
I think we're okay. You have maybe a few minutes left so we could open it for Q&A.
Okay. Contract tracers. Be wary of text and phone calls supposedly from contact tracers suggesting you've been exposed to someone with COVID-19. Actual contact tracers will not ask for money or personal data, but we caution consumers not to open up any kind of links because that introduce malware into your system. And again, they're trying to pirate your personal information so they can then come after you. I'm gonna kind of wind up with this one. The fake package delivery scam. I know for myself, when the pandemic hit, I started ordering stuff, everything from groceries to cleaning supplies. I became an avid online shopper. I actually bought suits online, which is kind of radical for older male consumer. But what we found out is the scam artists are just ingenious, and all of a sudden they developed this fake package delivery scam that says that basically we're trying to get you a package, the package is waiting, we're really trying to get it to you, but you need to verify some personal information and all of that. And before you know it, you've clicked the link and folks have basically introduced malware to your system. Bottom line is, if you get a correspondence like that, then just go back to your vendor and verify all of that. Now, with that, I'm gonna stop. Any questions that anyone have about the COVID-19 type scams? but also other topics that relate to financial services industry. And by the way, I did put my contact information in the chat, and we are available to come to present at your single member district meetings as well. So if you want to set up something with your single member district, we can do that as well. So
Thank you
any
so-
questions?
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Abdullah. I'm hoping that you can give us a copy of the presentation for me to share, if that's okay.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay, good. You could just send it to my email and then I can share it on our Facebook page.
Okay.
The other question I have is that, usually when and I receive a lot of them, scams, people, emails from PayPal, emails from Apple, let's say, and I forward it on. They have like, spoofing at whatever the company is, or phishing or spam, and I send it off so that they're aware of the kind of scams that are out there. In this case, what should we do if we get a scam like that? Who do we report to? Do we report it to the FTC on the federal level? Or is there a number or a contact or email that we can have people report it to DC?
In all honesty, we have been advocating that people basically ignore and delete. And the
Okay.
reason being is that particularly with elder populations, it just opens up the door for potential additional contact. It gets real easy to say, okay, I'm going to report this to FTC and inadvertently respond back to whoever sent you the initial contact. So we've really been advocating that people just basically, just shut it down, because we just don't want people to accidentally get sucked in. And it's so easy because these people are so convincing, if indeed you open up the door and allow them to have any kind of substantive contact with you. With that being said, you can always send that information to the DC Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking. You can forward it straight to my email address, and then we can have we have a division of investigations and enforcement who would then, conduct an investigation of that. With that being said, again, it is very, very, very challenging to navigate that whole system. Believe it or not, the call I got today, the person, had a very, very thick accent. A lot of the stuff is coming from overseas. It's being bounced off 5 or 6 different towers. I see our retiree from the federal investigator is nodding their head. They know what I'm talking about. And it's
Very difficult.
it's very difficult. So I would just basically, we really want people to be safe first and foremost. One time I had an issue happen at my house, and I called the police and then jumped up out of my house to chase down the possible culprits. And the police was like telling my wife, please have your husband come back in the house. Sometimes we want consumers first and foremost, above all else, to be safe. So I would suggest, send the information directly to my office. We'll turn it over to investigations and enforcement. But we don't really want our consumers trying to play police with some of these folks.
Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? Mr. Higgins, you look like you were thinking about something for a moment.
Do you do any work with the Federal Trade Commission?
Definitely. And we've had them, speak at some of our events, and we've spoken at some of their events. There is a federal kind of financial literacy group made up of a number of different federal government agencies, and the district's financial literacy council is housed so to speak, with the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking. That's our primary connection with the Federal Trade Commission through our Financial Literacy Council. And on the investigations and enforcement side, they're in contact with them as well.
Yeah, I understand. They're the major federal agency on privacy issues because they attack it and on the basis of fraudulent or misrepresentations, and that gives them the leverage. But they're huge, and it's wonderful to see that we have some good, solid local grassroots, operations here to reinforce the national effort. But I'm sure that cooperating between the two is beneficial.
And we also have a very strong relationship with the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation in terms of banking related financial fraud, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission on the investment and security side. Quite frankly, this stuff is so huge that even with the best run federal agencies or entities, you still have to have strong relationships with local governments to make things, to keep everybody safe. The feds can't do it alone. Local government can't do it alone. We all got to kind of work together. Shameless plug, but just recently the agency had a public forum dealing with flood and water damage. Now, this is not dealing with scams, but the reality of it is we had representatives from district government agencies, but we also had FEMA on the line, the feds as well. And that's an example of how we try to bring the federal presence to work in partnership with the local government presence. We all have to work this thing together.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is such an important topic. There are so many people who take advantage of the older population because the rise in dementia, just the hard of hearing, you pick up a phone call, it sounds like your nephew. I've heard of too many of these. And what you didn't speak about are the kind of close in contact scammers, the grifters rather. This is what I call the quick and dirty, like the very far arm's length, where if they can get access to your computer, then they can try to, ferret out your personal information. But then there are the other people who are the grifter scammers, I guess, the people who take advantage of others, and that's a whole nother ballgame. It's a whole nother story.
We have two other presentations. One is called Money Smart for Older Adults, which is like a 75-deck presentation that was developed by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. We use that as well. And we also have a presentation about affinity fraud with affinity groups, religious institutions, sororities, fraternities, clubs, and what have you.
Wow.
That being said, 70% of all of the financial exploitation of elders comes from family members and friends of the family. So we can talk about all of this other stuff all we want, but the overwhelming majority of elder exploitation comes from family members and friends, which again, that's another whole presentation as well. I
would certainly like to invite you at some point in the future to give that, because I do think people are not that aware. And in fact, financial institutions themselves are not aware. And the power of attorney, just that document plus guardianship and all of that, this is a whole, it's a whole nother thing, but it's important for people to become much more aware of it so that they can keep their loved ones safe.
The Department of Aging and Community Living sponsors the DC Elder Abuse Prevention Committee. We just had a presentation on the 29th of June in celebration of Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Bottom line is, you're absolutely right. Folks are not as informed as we need to be, but that just gives us an opportunity to explore possible relationships and to come back again and do some other stuff. But that whole part
Yes.
about advanced directives,
Correct.
all of that there. And I'm going through it myself personally, you know, getting all those papers in place to protect me as I age. And again, someone brought up the point about diminished capacity.
Mhm.
I don't know what happened in our environment, but I can remember elders suffering from diminished capacity in their 80s and 90s. Now I'm starting to see more and more people in their 60s
Mhm.
who are falling victim of diminished capacity. I don't know what happened between that previous generation and our generation, but something happened. And the age where people have been detected with diminished capacity has, I think, decreased at least by 20 years.
Hmm.
So,
Well, I would love to work with you. I'll contact you offline. This is very near and dear to my heart. It's very important, I think, and maybe we can bring some other civic organizations that, like locally here, who are servicing our older population. So, thank you so much.
and thank you all so much. And Mr. Zeldin, you get an opportunity, please reach out to me. I would like to share stories with you because I know you got some stories to share.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention was that during my decade or so as a partner at Deloitte, Deloitte had a very large financial literacy outreach program. And so I don't know whether you work with any of the big four or lesser than big four companies in the city. They're all here. But if you don't have those relationships, I'm very happy to at least introduce you to the people I know at Deloitte and see if there's opportunities to do things together if you're not already doing that.
I would very much like to have that introduction because since 2012, I've served as the administrative support person for the DC Financial Literacy Council. Our 2020 report is about to be published and distributed. My colleague, Ms. Michelle Hammonds, is taking my place effective October 1. Well, really effective now, but it'll be more formalized on October 1. But I think that's an excellent relationship or series of relationships that can go a long way towards protecting the residents here of the District of Columbia.
Okay, I'll try my best to get the best point of contact.
I'll appreciate it. And thank you all so much for having me. I'm
You're
gonna
welcome. Thank you.
take my face, and if it's okay for you all, can I stay on the meeting for a little while so I can
Absolutely, sure.
just be nosy
Please.
and find out the rest of what's going on around my city.
Yep, sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Randy, you
next-
have to switch him back.
okay.
It does something to my act. I guess you can only do one co-host at a time or something.
Maybe that's what it is. Okay, I can do that. All right, and you want to elevate Director Robinson then as well? Okay, the next item on the agenda is a presentation from the Director of the Department of Motor Vehicles, and all of us have interactions with the Department of Motor Vehicles. That's every single one of us drives a car one time or another. And so they have asked to make a presentation about the work that they're doing. And so we're glad to have Director Robinson with us.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Good evening, should I say?
Right.
The time is moving. So good evening, ANC 34G. My name is Gabriel Robinson, and I am the director of the DC Department of Motor Vehicles, and I'm honored to be here tonight just to share with you a little bit about what's going on here at the DMV. I'll keep my remarks brief and short because of the time, and I will give a series of announcements and our updates just to remind the community of some of the happenings at the DMV. the first thing I want to start with is just thank the community and my DMV employees for all the hard work and your patience during the time of coronavirus, the pandemic, at the height of the public health emergency. We understand that it was a much different way that you had to do business with the DMV, using an appointment system, doing more and more of your business online. So we appreciate your patience. But at the same time, I do want to thank the DMV employees who were coming to work during the height of the pandemic. They all returned back to work on June 23rd, 2020, long before there was a vaccine, long before we knew really what was going on with COVID-19. They returned back to work. And indeed, over the course of this pandemic, we have seen over 245,000 appointments in person. So I know there was a lot of talk and grief about, DMV and appointments, but we were indeed seeing a large number of people still during the pandemic, during the time that we wasn't sure what was going on. But we do appreciate the public's patience as, the public health officials have worked to really get us to a place where it is now safe for us to end the practice of using the appointment system to visit the DMV. So starting the week of the 19th of this month, July 19th, the DMV will return to a completely walk-in schedule or walk-in operation, with the exception of those items that required an appointment before the pandemic, things like the schedule of a road test. That required an appointment long before the pandemic. It still will require an appointment. It still will require an appointment for, say, a hearing for a major moving violation where a cop pull you over. And if you want to have a hearing on that ticket, we have to have both the cop and you present. So that still requires an appointment. But all of our other services in our for service centers will no longer require an appointment starting the week of July 19th. So the first full day for service centers is July 20th, as we're closed on Mondays to the public. So we're happy to get back to normal operations. I will say during this time, we do still encourage individuals that can do their business online or through the mobile app or through the mail to still utilize those options, because we do understand once we move to the walk-in operation that we will have a volume crush of people coming in to get service. And there will be a number of people that need to come in person. But what we have learned is still we're getting about 55 to 60% of our transactions a day are things that can be done online, through the mail, or on the app. And so we're asking you to try first online to see if you can get it done, or through our mobile app to see if you can get it done. And if you can't, then make a visit to see us, with the understanding that the first week or two, once we reopen to walk-in service, there will indeed be likely a higher volume than what we're used to seeing on our normal operations. But we do indeed believe that will calm down after a week or two for walk-in operation. The only requirement in terms of safety that you will still see when you visit any DMV location or any government building for that matter is you will have a mask requirement. So anytime you visit a DMV location, you will be required to have a mask or facial covering once you enter the building. All of our other restrictions are no longer in play. The social distancing is no longer there. We're still being cautious with a lot of the cleaning that we're doing, because we just think good cleaning and good hygiene is just a good practice throughout the year, long after COVID is no longer a topic. We think good hygiene and clean hands are indeed the best way to just reduce outbreaks, infections, and other diseases in the first place. So that's the first thing. The next thing is I do want to remind the public that the mayor did announce, starting on June 1st of this year, ticket amnesty that will run until September 30th of this year. So the DMV has removed all the penalties on all tickets in our system, and you're only required to pay the base fine. So that's any ticket in our system. We have taken any of the penalties off, and tickets will not double back until October 1st, 2021. Keep in mind that the penalties that are associated with booting and towing And storage fees, those did not go away. So if you do owe a booting fee or towing fee, those penalties did not go away. But all other penalties for a simple ticket doubling, because we know after 30 days in the District of Columbia, a ticket will double if you don't pay or answer the ticket through the adjudication process. All those penalties have been removed. And so we're asking individuals that may want to take advantage to use this opportunity to pay down any of those outstanding tickets. This is a great time to do it. All those penalties will return on October 1, 2021. The other thing that I know is in the news and is a talking point is the escalating RPP fees that was introduced or implemented, should I say, on June 1st, 2021, so recently. And the escalating RPP is an initiative that was introduced by council and adopted and signed by the mayor into law after they passed it, which does change the RPP fee and structure altogether. So as many of you know, RPP was a flat fee of $35 for any car in the household, except for senior citizens, vehicles owned by seniors. It used to be $25. For everyone else, it was a flat fee no matter how many cars you had in one household. It was $35 for each and every car, period, per year. With the introduction of the council bill for the escalating RPP, it did change the structure where the fee is a gradual fee. So the first RPP for a vehicle in a single household is now $50 for the first vehicle, $75 for the second vehicle needing RPP, $100 for the third vehicle needing RPP in the same household, and then it is $150 per year for every vehicle thereafter that needs an RPP sticker. Now, there is one caveat that per household, one senior citizen in the household can get a reduced fee of $35 for a single senior vehicle that's owned by a senior citizen in the household. So keep in mind, it is by the household. So if you have 5 cars in the house, then you are indeed impacted if your address is eligible for RPP and you opt into the program, that it is on an escalated basis. And keep in mind, when we say seniors, that one vehicle owned by a senior per household, we do mean individuals that are 65 years and older, just to give a definition of a senior. Other announcements that I do want to make are some key enforcement dates that, of course, starting on June 1st, 2021, DMV ended the waiver for registration expiration on your vehicles, renewals, and inspection renewals. So that ended on June 1st. So individuals are subject to tickets if they have not gone through the inspection station. Keep in mind, the inspection station has been open since June 23rd, 2020 on a first come, first served basis with no appointment necessary. And then registration renewals have been done online or through the mail since 2009 with no walk-in opportunity at the DMV. So those services should be completed by everybody by now. And those waivers ended on June 1st. Driver's licenses and ID compliance must be done by September 9th. So if you have a credential that has expired during the pandemic, then you will no longer have a waiver starting September 9th. So you do need to either go online through the DMV mobile app and renew your credential if you are Real ID compliant. And when I say Real ID compliant, I mean, look at your license. If you have a little black star in the upper right-hand corner of your credential, then you are indeed Real ID compliant. If you do not have the black star in the upper right-hand corner of your credential, you are not Real ID compliant, and you must come in person for your service. And there will be a number of documents that you must bring in for us to revalidate to send you through the Real ID process. But I am happy to say 96% of all DC residents are Real ID compliant. So we're not talking about a bunch of people that are required to come into the DMV. We're saying most people can do their business online or through the mobile app. So please take a look at your credential to see where you fall. I will say one last thing before I open it up for questions. I've said the DMV mobile app a number of times. So during the pandemic, I did have the DC DMV app enhanced. Before the pandemic, we only had one thing on our app, and that was a digital registration that you can have. Since the pandemic started, we have over 12 transactions available on the DC DMV mobile app. So we're encouraging everybody to please go to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store and download our app. Just search DC DMV and you will find our app, and then you will have the DC DMV in your back pocket at your fingertips. So there's no reason in some of those cases, in some cases, not all cases, that you have to come to the DMV, that you can do your business from the comfort of your own home. Although there will be some that will require your visit. So please be mindful of those things. And when you do visit, please check out our website and our document verification guide such that you can kind of go through what documents you may need before you arrive so you come prepared and get it done on your first visit. So with that, I'll end my remarks and take questions from the commissioners and the community. Thank you.
Lisa?
Mr. Robinson, thank you for your presentation. Very good and informative. First, I want to just let you know, during the pandemic, I visited Georgetown with my son and also the Southwest Inspection Station. And just a shout out to your employees at those two locations. My husband knows everyone at Georgetown. So when he goes there, they come from behind the counter. I mean, they've known him since his days on NPD. So it's great to go there. With my son, they were awesome. I cannot thank, and I don't know the rep's name, but my son was taking the driver test, you know, the yeah. And they were awesome with him. So a lot of times we have complaints as managers of employees, what they didn't do. Just know those two stations, we always have really good customer service. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you, and I really appreciate you taking that moment. You're right. I oftentimes hear about the things we don't do well or didn't go right. I don't oftentimes always hear about the vast goodness sometimes.
Yeah, I wish I had their names, but they're just wonderful.
Lisa, can I interrupt 1 second to say that at Half Street, the folks that I deal with who are just fantastic are Mr. Kit and Sifo Nayakali.
Yes, I know exactly who they are.
So those two guys make traveling down to Half Street the most pleasurable experience one can expect from a DMV. So if you can remember my name, Michael Zeldin, and you can say that I gave a shout out to Mr. Kidd and to Sifo. They're just terrific people.
I will do just that and make sure that they know that I had this conversation with you and will mention you by name. And I appreciate you as well for taking that moment to acknowledge the DMV team.
Sorry, Lisa, to interrupt, but I just know those guys.
That's great. So my question was on the residential parking permit and the seniors. So I guess I'm kind of concerned about the potential fees and if there was any discussion on an exemption. So I know they get one vehicle, you said one vehicle exemption. Was there any discussion on reducing those fees? And the reason why I bring that up is because when I became commissioner, I had a conversation with a constituent, and one of the first, the first constituent conversation I had was about just being able to afford to live in the city, not being able to afford to live in a city, and some of the things they had to do to try to make ends meet. And they are a senior. Was there any discussion on exempting them from this? I mean, I know it's not a lot, but things kind of add up.
So So again, there wasn't a lot of discussion about an exemption for parking for anyone.
Okay.
There was discussions about really what changes should happen to really discourage individuals from owning multiple cars in one residence, taking up more spaces than they can use, or a vehicle that they never use and it just sits there and takes up space in the neighborhood, but they have
Okay.
RPP on it. And thus many neighbors were really feeling the pressure that they can't park in front of their home, to unpack their groceries or after shopping or what have you. And there's a neighbor in the neighborhood with 5 cars, and all 5 got RPP on the vehicle. So the senior discount is the consideration. At least one senior per household is eligible for the reduced discounted rate of $35 per year. Now keep in mind that it's $35 for the entire year of parking on the street.
Okay.
And so that figure is drastically reduced under market rate for any parking for a year's period of time. And that even at the highest level of $150, it still isn't indeed not anywhere close to what a market rate for a year's worth of parking is. And so given those considerations, it is trying to strike a fair balance of deterrence, but at the same time, keeping the rates well under market rates. I mean, it's literally a fraction of what the rate would be otherwise.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Peter?
Mr. Robinson, thank you for the presentation. As you may know, our community, particularly at its core, has some very major streets, Connecticut Avenue and some east-west streets such as Military. Most of the major streets don't have RPP. This is a problem that a constituent has had. The address is a major street, but there are nearby streets that have RPP, but trying to get your system to recognize that although the address is, for example, in my case, Military Road or Connecticut Avenue, they're eligible for RPP on the side street. How do you, so it's easy for me, I've lived there a long time, so you send me the thing, but how do they get recognized as being eligible for RPP if the legal address is a major street?
So I'll answer this in 2 parts. First of all, the way the RPP works, it is strictly based on your street address, meaning it's not based on adjacent streets, side streets that may touch your, one side of your home or what have you. It is truly your home address and your street address. And so it's not necessarily a system issue. It is the way that RPP is designed to be.
Could I just
when it comes to how do we get those individuals into the system, that is the question for DDOT, because RPP is a DDOT program. It's just administered by the DMV. DDOT don't have a way to get massive amounts of RPP out to a number of people. Now they're testing out this digital parking permit system at the moment, but they're not tackling RPP because it's the largest parking permitting program in the city. And the best way that we know now to get that out to individuals is through the DMV's registration. But if DDOT changed the program and decided to add those additional addresses in the system, DMV is not opposed to it. In fact, we just get the addresses from them, add it to our system, and thus the address is then eligible. So it's really an eligibility question for DDOT.
Okay, so a 2-part question. I don't want to make trouble for myself, but I have a Military Road address. Military Road is not RPP. I've had RPP for years. I've just gotten a registration statement with, and so why do I qualify?
If indeed they've added your address into the system, your block, even on the major.
Just dumb luck?
If they've added your address in the system, that's what makes you qualify. But again, those addresses aren't determined by the DMV.
Okay,
Anybody who even wants RPP in their neighborhoot have to go through a DDOT application process, a whole vetting process with your neighbors to fill out this petition. And that's all done through DDOT. Once approved, then DDOT uploads that information to the DMV system, and then it makes you eligible for RPP. So I can't necessarily answer your specific address question because we don't get involved in the approval or disapproval of an address. It is simply put the address in and we will honor it.
okay, then let me ask the question this way. Who at DDOT do I go to with this question?
I don't have a specific person. I will go to DDOT's website and I will go to the RPP section. They have an entire permit application period of a process. And I'm assuming the person that receives those applications is the person that I would start with, but I don't have a name because we really don't have much involvement with DDOT on this topic at all, other than they email us the addresses and then we upload that information. But it's not a conversation back and forth between us. It is truly what's the address. So maybe the constituent individual at DDOT, because I know they have some individuals that work by different wards, that perhaps I would start there to have that individual look into those impacted people on those major streets.
And Mr. Robinson, you have a question in the QA.
Sure.
I don't know if you have access or
Let me see if I can pull it up.
can you see it?
I see the chat, but I don't see anything for me. I
What?
just see something thinking Mr. Abdullah.
Oh, it's in the QA section.
In the
So
Yeah.
on the far
Oh,
right.
okay, hold on, let me go back. Okay. My mother father's name. Okay, so what we would do in this case is we will try to make some accommodations. The question was really for seniors who have a hard time coming to the DMV to renew their licenses. I'll summarize it, what accommodations can be made to assist them. And so what we try to do for individuals that are unable to come to the DMV easily is to try to make accommodations for a day and time where a caregiver can assist them, come with them, because there are some things that I need here, like taking a picture that's in the office. But we try to make some accommodations. We were on a very small scale testing out a pilot of trying to go to individuals' home and taking photos and things. It wasn't the best DMV quality because it's not using our high-tech equipment in the building. But we were trying to do it, but then COVID put an end to all of that because we no longer could go into the homes of individuals for the safety of the people living at the home and for the DMV employees. And then seniors are still very skeptic of individuals coming to their home that they're not familiar with, so to speak. So I would drop an email. I would put the DMV email in the chat box, which is dmv@dc.gov, with this exact same question that you wrote. And we will connect you with someone in our driver services administration to see what accommodations we can try to make, or if there is a time and day that works best to try to get maybe one parent out the house at a time. So it's easier, or maybe it's easier to bring both at one time on a day. So we can have discussions to see what we can do, but we take it on a case-by-case basis. It's not a universal answer.
Okay, thank you, Director Robinson. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, well, we really appreciate all the information you've given us. It's been very helpful, and thank you for reaching out to us and asking to make a presentation. We appreciate it. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
for having
Thank
me.
you.
Thank
Oh,
Michael,
wait, Michael, your sound. Michael, your sound is off.
Sorry. So on this question of helping people that have particular needs at DMV, I had this issue with one of my constituents, and again, we're in the shout out department. There's a fellow name is Emeka China Garoom. He's at M Street.
Yep.
I think, yeah, M Street.
Yep.
And Emeka was, again, terrific. This is a wife who has a husband with dementia, and I reached out to, and he needed an ID. He doesn't drive, obviously, but he needed an identification. And Emeka was just terrific. They made an appointment. They helped him through the process, and so you got 3 shout outs from me, and I hope you deliver them because all of them deserve it.
Great, I appreciate it very much. I know exactly who Emeka is. He works in the same building as I as well. And it's refreshing to hear your comments. I really appreciate it. I do see that Commissioner Randy did put the DMV's email address. I'll also drop my email address in the chat box as well, so you can reach out to me as well. Mine is pretty simple, just gabriel.robinson@dc.gov, but I'll type it in before I leave, just so that it's there for the community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, I have cut off my video because I had to abandon my usual spot that my grandkids are visiting unexpectedly, and that's where they're going to sleep tonight.
Oh,
So
so
I am
cute.
I'm elsewhere right now. We got past their bedtime. Okay, the next item on the agenda is discussion and possible vote on Feed the Family Pantry's application for a grant of $1,990 to purchase refrigeration and cooler equipment to support services to Regency House residents. And Lisa, you've been handling this with the applicant. And we've had a series of discussions with Gottlieb Simon about this as well. I have had a series of discussions and email exchanges. So you want to introduce this, and I can fill in any information you want about the conversations with Gottlieb.
Yeah, so pretty much we're picking up here, and I just promoted Judith. So Judith, if you're able to chime in and you want to, please do so. But
let me just point out that the way our rules read, we're supposed to we have a presentation at the last meeting, and today we vote. We can certainly ask with questions, but it's not really appropriate to have another presentation. So
well,
we can just
what I would like for her to do, Randy, and we can do it during the discussion on the vote or do it ahead of time, is she updated the application. So
right.
I know the ANC got a copy of that. I don't know if everyone had a chance to read it, but maybe it's a good idea to just let her do a brief overview of the updated application so the commissioners understand what's changed.
Sure.
Okay, Judith, you want to give just a brief overview?
Yeah, I'll be very brief. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you so much for working with us on this application. The core of the application really hasn't changed. Our main interest here is serving the 15 residents that have been identified who live in Regency House. They are the most food insecure residents of a low-income community in the heart of your ANC. What we've added to our application is a series of numbers that show that we have actually been serving about about 30 households in that area through Ward 3 Mutual Aid. One of the problems is that the pantry is a mile from where people live. So they're very dependent on us to deliver, and we simply don't have the volunteers. We're limited in that way, but some people have made their way down to the pantry at Van Ness. I think that's really the main point. The other question really is the equity issue, but I'll leave that to you. It would just be a real shame if we couldn't find community support for our volunteers. This weekend we did serve 109 we provided 109 produce bags, which is our highest yet. And this is all so far based on private donations and gleaning through Food Rescue US and volunteer time. We had 16 volunteers this weekend.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Judith right now? Okay, Judith John?
Yeah, I raised the point earlier in a memo to my colleagues that one of the criteria for the grant from the ANC is that it fills a need that is not being filled by a DC agency. And you mentioned St. Albans in your presentation. And I found out that St. Albans is not just a charity, it's a DC certified food bank. And if they were to give you, and if your territory cannot be filled by them, if you're fulfilling a gap there, maybe some endorsement of your effort by St. Albans as a certified food bank would enhance your stature. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or how that would apply to the application process, but it probably wouldn't hurt to get something for the record on that respect.
You may be referring to St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Yeah, we do work with them. We've been delivering capital area food bank boxes from St. Paul's for about 14 months. So they will have people come up to the church to pick up their boxes, and what Ward 3 Mutual Aid has done is do the last mile or two for people who can't reach St. Paul's. So we are delivering those. The difference between our offerings, we're offering fresh produce. St. Paul's is offering a limited selection of shelf-stable canned goods. But you know, another point I made in the amended, I guess, the cover letter is, yes, we are filling a gap that is not being filled by the DC government. In this case, there is a very good program run by the Department of Health called DC Greens Produce Plus, and it allows about 8,000 residents, low-income residents who meet eligibility requirements, to purchase $20 worth of produce for 10 weeks from farmers markets in DC. Ward 3 is not included. We have no farmers markets in Ward 3 that are serving low-income shoppers this way, because Ward 3 is considered to be too affluent. So people here are falling through the cracks. They can't afford financially to be traveling to other wards. It's difficult for people. A lot of our people are disabled and elderly. So we are trying to fill that gap as best we can. And it's a real, it's a shame. We certainly understand that the spread of food insecurity is broader in other wards, but there's no question that people in Ward 3 and including in your own ANC are going hungry.
Yeah.
If you're in association with a certified agency and they acknowledge that they just can't reach the point that you're reaching, that would enhance your application.
Okay.
So something for the record might be helpful.
I'll talk to them about that. We can provide something probably tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Judith.
Thank you, Judith. Okay, Randy, at this time, I move that the ANC approve the Feed the Family grant application.
Is there a second? Lots of seconds. I think we just ought to explain the problem that has been raised by Gottlieb Simon, the director of the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions, who is the person who would approve or disapprove the grant application. I have run this by him several times now, including the latest amendments that Judith has just described to us. And Gottlieb has consistently said that this does not qualify under the statutory definition of meeting a community benefit that benefits the entire community. He has a number of, his objections have evolved over time, but they have, first of all, centered on the limited number of people who would be affected. 15 people, he says, is not enough to have a community benefit. Then he did raise the issue that John just described as to whether other district agencies were performing the same services. I don't think that's his primary concern. He seems to still be fixated on the limited number of people who will be served. And yeah, it is inconceivable to me, really, that he could be taking this kind of position, because it seems apparent to me that helping the hungry people in our neighborhood, the food insecure people in our neighborhood, is a benefit for the entire community, because it enables us to be a welcoming community. And otherwise, are we trying to exclude people who are food insecure from living in our neighborhood? And that's exactly the opposite of what we want to do. And so I've tried to explain that to Gottlieb. He has been completely unreceptive to that. And I then asked the Attorney General for an opinion about the interpretation of the statute. And they responded very quickly and said that they would get back to us this week, early this week, they said, with an answer. There is a 2000 opinion letter from the AG that addressed the situation where there were 5 people who were being directly benefited, but there was, in that case, they said, an indirect benefit to the community from the work that those 5 individuals were going to be doing. So I think there is plenty of room in the statute for the interpretation that we would prefer. And my view is that we should go ahead with and approve this application and give the grant, regardless of whether Gottlieb Simon decides to approve it or not. And the consequence of his not approving it would be that amount of money, the $1,990, would be deducted from our quarterly allotment. And that we've gone through that before. It happened once before. And when it did, this was a grant to Friendship Place for winter socks and gloves. And the auditor at that time concluded that it was not covered by the statute. Well, we went back to the council, and the council amended the statute and fixed it. And so I think this is a similar kind of situation, that if this is not an acceptable grant, then the council should fix it. And we should go ahead and do this and raise the issue, even if it means the possibility that we won't get reimbursed for that $1,990. So that would be my recommendation for what we do. John?
Yeah, I'd like a clarification on reimbursed. When you brought this up in the earlier memos today, I was gathered that, okay, we give the people $2,000, and so our budget declines by $2,000. And the next time around, when Simon gives us our allocation, if our allocation is normally $4,000, he'll only give us $2,000. Is that how that works?
Correct.
Okay, so it's kind of a net decline of $4,000, but I just wanted to find out what the process.
Well, it's a net decline, I think, $2,000, because it just means we get our normal reduction, our normal allotment will be reduced by $1,990 if they decide, if they disallow the grant.
Okay, all right.
Connie?
Well, I wanted to make a point. Judith was kind enough to give us some data, and she says that Regency House, 85% of the low-income residents are seniors and 42% are disabled, and that the 15 individuals residents there were identified as being the to have the greatest need and the least support. So in my calculation, it's not, if Gottlieb's objection is that the number is 15, and if you look at the 15,000 residents in our ANC, that seems like a small number, but it's actually 100%. It's 100% of the neediest. So it's not the absolute number of 15, but it is that we are, that this grant is addressing the neediest. And so it's a different, I think that that has to be very clear.
Well,
And if
Gottlieb doesn't care. I mean, Gottlieb's only consideration here is the number of people who are affected.
he can't stand by that, because
Well, that's
what
what
is
he-
the right,
that-
no, what
that's
I'm saying is that
That's his
but what
position.
I know, but Randy, what I'm trying to counter is, what is the right number for anything then? You don't, it's very difficult to come up with an absolute number. But
Couldn't
if you
agree
come,
more.
right, so in our area, because I mean, just as Judith just said, you know, we don't even qualify because we're too affluent, right, for certain programs, because there's this idea that no low-income residents, you know, they don't reside here, but it is not true with the housing choice voucher program and so forth. So, and if we are going to continue to welcome more residents with, you know, with greater diversity, there may be residents who, for whatever period of time, that are going to need more services. And if agencies are not covering that, and local civic organizations are, then they cannot be, it cannot be that they must serve 100 when there's really only 15, but they are serving that population, that segment of the population, and that definitely affects our community. So that's the only
Well,
point I'd like to make.
I agree that the position Gottlieb's taking is untenable, but it's his position. And we're not going to be able to change that. And I've asked him, you know, well, if 15 isn't enough, is 20? Is 25?
But
Is
that's not the right,
75? I mean, we don't know.
but that's not the right question. The question
Well-
is, what is the population we're serving? And
Well,
that is the population.
But
I
if it
mean,
were
so-
one, if it were a population of one, would that still be okay? You know, I think
If
his focusing on a number like that is
Yeah.
just the wrong
That's the wrong
approach.
way. I agree.
That's the wrong approach. And I
agree.
don't think we want to get into whether it's 100% of the population that could be affected. That's, from his standpoint, that's not relevant.
Well,
And
Randy, the one question I have is, well, firstly, I support this grant, and if it costs us $1,900+ so be it. I know during my campaign, I spent a lot of time with the guys outside in the little area. They have a nice little courtyard. If you went to my michaelzeldin.com ANC website, you'll see photographs I took of those folks there. They couldn't been, they are the nicest cohort of people that I met throughout my campaign. So I support it unqualifiedly. They're a great group and they're deserving of our assistance. The question I wanted to ask though, Randy, is Gottlieb the final arbiter of, I mean, he's one guy who's in the office of the Advisory Neighborhood Commission. Does he have unilateral decision-making over this stuff? I'm just curious. I mean, we're going to vote this way, and if he says no, do we have, I mean, I know you said in the other example, the DC City Council changed the statute, but is there recourse beyond him? Let's say the Attorney General's office disagrees with him, and he says, well, too bad, I don't agree with them. What's the process, so people who are listening understand whether we're living in, a democracy, or whether, this is the Gottlieb.
Well, he oversees us, right? He's the executive director of the
Well, no, he does
OANC.
not, he does not oversee us. He
No,
is,
then-
no, he has the authority that the auditor had before to decide whether grants are appropriate or not. But we asked for the opinion of the Attorney General. And if the Attorney General comes down with an opinion that says, yes, this is an appropriate grant, then I think Gottlieb would not have any choice. He would be bound, by the interpretation of the statute by the Attorney General.
That's
Exactly.
fine. That's fine.
And so that's, we've got to hope that the Attorney General will recognize that this is an appropriate grant.
They will.
I hope so. And
Well, if they don't, they have to change the language. It's clearly.
then we have an argument to go to the council and say, the Attorney General has misinterpreted your language. You didn't intend this. Please clarify the language.
Yeah, but
And-
we shouldn't have to, I mean, these people shouldn't have to wait for that process, which is
No.
what we say we should
No.
vote in favor of this.
It's of
Yes.
urgency.
Give the grant, and then we who aren't
Work it out.
as much need can figure
Yes.
out the process thereafter.
I wholeheartedly agree.
I
Okay.
Can you call the question?
Are we ready to vote? Okay.
Call the
all those in-
question. Mhm.
You'll get to see me for a second. All those in favor? 6-0. Okay, that's great. All right. The next item on the agenda is one that's just purely our internal workings, but it affects obviously everybody who's listening to our meetings or comes to our meetings. And this is what we're going to do about future meetings. And we've certainly talked with Councilmember Robert White about the need for the council to permit in-person or hybrid type meetings where we could have virtual meetings combined with in-person meetings. And as the statute stands right now, as of this moment, on July 25th, when the public health emergency ends, or at least it can end, we will then be required to go back to in-person meetings for our next meeting on July 26th. Well, I asked Sean Hilgendorf, who is the committee director for Robert White's committee, what they were considering doing about this, because they have indicated to me in the past that they were considering changes to the legislation that would allow us to continue having virtual meetings until we work out some procedure for hybrid meetings. And here's what he wrote me back late this afternoon. This is at actually 6:57 today. We have worked with the chairman to incorporate language into the emergency legislation we expect to pass tomorrow, decoupling this authority from the end of the public health emergency, which we expect to be on July 25th. As it stands in the circulated draft, this would extend the remote meeting authority until November, giving us time to move additional legislation to keep that authority ongoing and eventually permanent as we intend. Councilmember Allen is moving a separate amendment tomorrow that would further extend the remote meeting authority even based on tomorrow's vote to February. So it looks like we will have at least until November and probably until February to work out whatever arrangements we're going to have going forward for in-person, hybrid, in-person and virtual meetings in some kind of hybrid form. And so I don't think we have to make any decision immediately, but we need to start thinking about how we're going to do this. And we've had some discussions among ourselves about the difficulties of going back to the community center, which is inadequate on a number of grounds. The technology is not available there that we would need for hybrid meetings. It's certainly not acoustically very good for hybrid meetings. We are limited in the time we can have there because we will have to shut down at 9:15 every night. And as we see tonight, we're running beyond that. So there are a lot of reasons why we might think about a new location for our meetings going forward. And there are several potentials that I identified, at least, potential institutional sites. And I think we should look at institutional sites rather than, and there's been some suggestions that we could go to the second floor of the Avenue, for instance. I think that would be inappropriate because we have to review the liquor licenses for the Avenue or any other business along Connecticut Avenue. And so I don't think that would be appropriate. But the possible institutional sites could include St. John's College High School, Knollwood, which is offered, Ingleside, I think as well. They've got meeting rooms too. Lafayette Elementary School would be a possibility. Lafayette Pointer Recreation Center would be a possibility. Then there's several churches around the circle, Chevy Chase Baptist Church, the Chevy Chase Presbyterian Church, Blessed Sacrament Church, and Temple Sinai. All of those would be possibilities, I think, that we could explore. I did reach out to Jeff Mansabelli, who is the president of St. John's, because St. John's really does have some ideal facilities, lots of parking, big rooms. They're very well wired for virtual meetings. But he indicated that they just couldn't guarantee the times for us because they have a lot of evening activities at the school. And so we couldn't be assured that we could have all of the second and fourth Mondays when we want to meet. So he said they reluctantly would have to decline, but we could reach out to some of these other institutions.
Can you add ECC to that? I mean, when we took a tour, that main building, yeah.
Would
the
that
main
be, would it be big enough for?
Yes, way
Yeah,
bigger than Lafayette Pointer.
Their dining hall would be perfect in terms of
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
size.
And
I
it's
think
got
the
like
only-
another big room where if more
Okay.
people wanted to show up, and it would
I'm
give us
sure they got-
space to try to figure things out on the hybrid technology
I'm
side.
sure they've got the teleconferencing technology availability because we commute with them, we
Yeah.
communicate with them all the time. They just don't have that small parking lot. That would be the only.
Yeah,
issue.
the parking would be a bit of a
Street
problem.
parking is-
You can
There
park
is-
on the street.
Fine.
There's on-street parking, at least until Murray gets there.
Yeah.
Thinking also about the Pointer facility lobby seems to be probably big enough, and I'm sure that they've got the most modern communications in that building.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I'm sure, I hope they've got very modern
But
communication.
acoustically, that's going to be a hard one, don't you think? I mean, when I walk through, it's not a place in the lobby where you can, without echoing. We can try it, but
Yeah.
The thing is, do they have chairs?
I
mean,
we
Yeah,
can
that's
get
a
all those
question
things.
too.
Right,
That's a
those are
question.
all things we don't know.
Yeah.
So do you want to divvy up this list and go?
Yeah,
to
what I was gonna suggest is that we appoint a committee, a subcommittee, to address this issue. And that 2 or 3 of us split up these possibilities and do some due diligence and figure out what is possible.
Well, I elect John for Knollwood.
I'll volunteer for
So,
this.
that's assuming Connie's in good standing.
Well, whether I'm on the subcommittee or not, I can certainly check with Colonel Fricker and see what can be worked.
Right.
We have
Well,
a fair amount of parking available for visitors, which is not used in the evening, so.
And there's some on-street parking that's not too far away, so you could use it.
Blessed
But-
Sacrament has this parking option.
Yeah, the Blessed Sacrament Parish Hall might be good too. And
That would be good.
Well, so I volunteer as at least one member of this subcommittee working group, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, anyone else want to volunteer?
I'm happy to call up to ECC also. I'm in touch with Stephanie, so that's easily done.
Okay, I'll be,
Can I ask one question though, which is in respect of St. John's, which, still is the best option in many respects. Is it, I mean, how important is it that we meet at the same location every week? So for every meeting. So for example, if St. John said, yeah, you can have this, but if we've got school programming, we need to bump you, and presumably they'll know it sometime in advance. When we put out our agenda a week in advance, can we just say this week's meeting will be held at a location other than St. John's, or does that create too much confusion?
We certainly
Much
could do that,
confusion.
but I think does create confusion. I think.
It needs to-
We might get confused.
We would.
I'm planning on attending virtually.
How about the library? The library probably has better telecommunications than the community center.
Don't think so.
No?
I don't think so.
Looks like it's the same age, so it's probably built.
Yeah.
They're only a few years apart here.
Been there lately.
Yeah,
There is one
A room.
meeting room in the library. It's not large enough really for many of our meetings. I think if we had a meeting that was well attended by 50 people would probably not fit in that room.
Yeah, the other thing though is that it's 9:30, and if the library is a
Oh, yeah.
hard stop at 9, it just doesn't work for us.
Right. And it would be just like the community center. Even they close earlier than the community center, actually.
Okay, can I suggest that we just convene this working group and
Yeah.
because we've made a 2.5-hour meeting out of what's a relatively light load for us. So
Right.
Exactly.
I
Good
agree.
point, Peter.
Okay, I will be glad to be on that. And Michael and Peter, you want to join me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll work on this. And like I said, I don't think it's going to be an urgent matter that we have to deal with, certainly not for our next meeting. And hopefully we'll be able to work this out over the next
Good.
3 months or so. Okay.
Right.
All right, the minutes for our June 28th
Not
meeting.
not done.
Not done. Okay, so we'll postpone that till next time. John, you circulated a financial treasurer's report and some checks. You want to just summarize that?
Yes, we have a normal Zoom reimbursement check for 222.58. And another payment to satisfy our accumulated penalties with the DC Department of Employment Services. To save time, I explained all that in my memo. I don't know. Basically, we're stuck. We saved a little bit of money. We might be able to save another $100, but we're still going to probably pay a hefty fee. And my recommendation is to pay it. It happened in 2020, which is before our time here, except for the one in the spring, and the one in the spring we are pending. We have that pending for a waiver. So I think we just got to put this behind us. I spent a whole lot of time on this. I don't think I can spend a lot more. And we're just going to do the best we can. So I would recommend we pay the full amount of $522.89 and get this behind us and hope maybe they'll give us $100 back at some point. And then I further explained that through all of this, I've discovered ways of handling this in a much more efficient way with the Department of Employment Security portal, which is a very efficient way of doing this. I don't know why it wasn't exploited in the past, but I'm planning to use that in the future. And by the time the year is over, I hope that I'll be familiar, that both Stephanie and I will both be familiar with both the ONC portal and the Department of Employment Security portal, and we'll be operating this on a much more efficient basis. To that end, if we approve the checks tonight, I have some leftover checks to be signed from the last meeting. I just wanted to bunch them up so there wouldn't have to be a whole lot of running around. I would like to visit somebody's house tomorrow morning and get those signed. I would like to hand off the checkbook to Randy for the next 6 or 7 weeks while Katie and I will be on vacation. And by noon tomorrow, if all of this goes well, all our checks and reports for the current quarters for the federal government, for the Department of Energy, Department of Employment Services, and for OANC will be in the mail by the 15th of the month. And we will be on time in sending all these reports for the first time in 7 quarters.
Let's give them a
I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy. Now I can go to Michigan with my conscience clear.
Okay. John, can you also, first of all, let's take a vote on the checks. All those in favor of approving the checks that John's described? 6-0. Okay. Can you also cut a check for the $1,990 to Feed the Family Pantry?
Yes. Sure.
Because I know we need to get that out right away to them. They're waiting for that.
Let's do it immediately.
Yeah, so if we can do that and get that taken care of, and you can come by my house tomorrow morning. I've got a meeting at 10 and another one at 11 and another one at 1.
Does that constitute the signature you need, John, or am I supposed to sign it too?
I think you just need one other
I need
signature.
2 signatures on everything, depending upon who wants.
But if John signs it and I sign it, that's all you need.
Fine.
9 o'clock?
9 o'clock would be great. Yeah, I'll see you then.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
John, for all your work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, thanks, John.
It's a
This has
lot.
been- And
Thank you.
we really appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.
Okay, the items on the agenda for next meeting on the 26th are the report on the small area plan process, including a presentation and discussion by Eric Osberg at the Office of Planning, as Connie described, and the status and future timeline of the small area plan. Then a report on the Racial and Social Equity Committee, and finally a discussion of possible vote on special exception at 3706 Joslin Street to construct a 2-story rear addition. Anything else anybody has for the next meeting?
Whose SMD is that?
Michael's, I think. Is that right?
I think it's Michael's, right?
What is the-
Jocelyn,
No,
37.
it's not. It's
Not
not.
me.
3706 is not.
I
It's
started.
Chris.
Oh.
It's
Chris.
Chris. That's
Chris, yeah, it's Chris.
Chris, that's
It's
right,
Chris.
yeah.
Who's gonna honcho it?
I will if he's not around.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
Well, we're gonna
All
end too early?
Are we going to have any resolution or anything on the Bethesda Chevy Chase Rescue Squad issue? Before we leave for August recess? Nothing?
I don't think so. I mean,
Okay.
I would suggest not.
yep.
You know, Peter, I was thinking about you when you sent that picture of the crashed car and our conversation with Bethesda Chevy Chase Rescue and the length of time it took for EMS folks to get to your accident. And I
How
thought,
long was that? How long did it take for them to get there?
But the problem I had was, the police
It was
response
MPD.
to the 911 was forever. Then the problem, I think, frankly, with the EMS response was that one of the 2 people, one of the 2 drivers, kept saying, my leg is hurt. No, it's okay. No, it's hurt. No, it's okay. And in fact, the fire department came and he chickened out of getting an ambulance. So I think the response problem was to 911, and it was somewhere between 20 and 25 minutes. And the problem there is just these 2 cars. It was a rainy night. The 2 cars are in the road. They're small cars, and it was wild for a while. I mean, it was particularly wild because Military Road is a out of service bus route, and those buses were not going to halt for anybody. And so they passed cars trying to pull into the one lane that was open, just jammed right through it. I thought, oh, we're gonna have just a wipeout before this is over. So anyways.
It was very bad night. It was
Yeah.
very bad weather that night.
Did a fire
Okay.
truck come first and then an ambulance, or how did it work?
At one point, we had 2 police cruisers and a fire truck there. And then 2 hours later, there were tow trucks. It went on for a long time.
Mm.
Why are they send the fire truck for?
Okay.
Okay, we're done.
We gotta adjourn. Okay,
We're done.
chit chat on your own.
Yeah.
Okay, bye, everyone. Thank
Night.
you.
Hey, Randy, will you let
Wait,
us know
so-
if we hear
wait,
from the historic
the
Chevy
chat.
Chase folks?
Yep, the chat.
What?
If you hear from
He's on
Carl
vacation.
or any of those people about their meeting, would you let me know?
About which meeting is this? I didn't hear it.
If you hear from Carl,
Carl, okay, right, okay.
the 8th,
Yeah,
the,
okay, gotcha.
let me
Okay.
know. Okay?
I will.
All righty, thank you.
Thank you.